Hey Maggie,
Hey, Titi.
how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. Are you ready to answer some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Who are you?
I am Dr. Thomas. I am an associate professor in the psychology department here at Earlham College.
And what do your students call you?
They call me Maggie.
Just Maggie?
Just Maggie. We call everybody by their first name here.
Awesome. And where are we on campus right now?
Right now we're outside of LBC. LBC is the Landrum Bowling Center, and it is where the psych offices are. So I was coming from my office.
Lovely. And what's one thing your students might be surprised to learn about you?
I'm the departmental social psychologist, and I really didn't like my undergrad social psychology class. I hope my students don't feel the same, but here we are.
But you teach in social psych, don't you?
Yeah, I do teach social psychology, which is why I hope my students like my class.
What's one thing you've been surprised to learn about a student?
Honestly, I am always surprised when I learn how many languages some of my Earlham students speak. I've had multiple students in my time here who fluently speak like 6 languages. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know 5 languages is a polyglot. I wonder what 6 languages is.
Ridiculous, like magician level.
And what's your area of research?
I'm a stereotyping and prejudice researcher, but really I focus on research and person perception, and gender. So like, what is it about who we are as people that changes how other people perceive us, all in the domain of gender.
Awesome. And what's one thing that has surprised you about your research?
Surprised me about my research? Honestly, I think the ways in which people spend time thinking about gender without knowing they're thinking about gender. And this is in terms of like how using gendered collective nouns like guys changes how people literally think about the collection of group of people.
Cool. And how did you get into this research?
That's a great question. I think in psychology, research is me search. I say that to my students all the time. And so I think I got into this for a variety of ways. One is that like my parents were really serious about like you being a girl doesn't change the way you can do things in the world. I also have minors at the undergraduate, master's, and PhD level in terms of women's studies, so I've studied it. And then 3, I think also being part of the queer community matters because we engage with gender in slightly different ways. And so all of that kind of led to this area of research.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what does your education in this field look like?
So after high school, I went to a small liberal arts school, a lot like Earlham. And then I went and got my master's and PhD at Penn State in psychology.
And how did you find Earlham?
I found Earlham. I was looking for a job. It's really important. It was important to me when I was on the job market to look for small liberal arts schools like Earlham. And Earlham was just a great fit with what I do and what I'm interested in. And so I applied and they liked me and I liked them. And here we are 14 years later.
We love it. And if you're an Earlham student, how would you use your EPIC advantage?
Oh my gosh. My students use their EPIC advantage in so many different cool ways. I think for me, given like what I want to do with my life, like get here now, I would probably use my EPIC advantage to like find a research position, is my guess. Yeah.
And you lead an EPIC advantage, don't you?
I did lead an EPIC Advantage program, yeah. Last summer, I took a group of 7 students to Washington, D.C. and Stockholm, Sweden, where we rode public transport and we categorized how people, based on what we assumed their gender was, were like literally using their bodies in space. It was awesome.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what do you like to nerd about unrelated to your field?
I'm a huge nerd about apples. I just like legitimately apples. I have such strong feelings about apples and I like to try all the new varieties, so much so that I had friends whose parents moved to California and they had apple trees on their property and they brought me back an apple because it was so unique. It's called a pink pearl. You should Google it.
And so this is a very important question. What is the best apple that one can have?
There's not an answer to this because here's why I have such strong feelings. Different apples are good for different things. And so like I would never make an apple pie with fewer than 3 different varieties in it. So
nice. And what's your greatest professional accomplishment?
I think my greatest professional accomplishment is probably getting tenure at Earlham. It was the culmination of something that I had worked so hard for such a long time, and really kind of made real that I had worked really hard.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And what is your greatest personal accomplishment?
I think my greatest personal accomplishment is that I try and read into each day joy and curiosity. And I have a temperament that's suited to that, but it's also a deliberate practice that I try and meet the world with joy and find joy and curiosity. So
Yeah, that's really important. And when did you know you wanted to be a professor?
this will sound silly. When I started an undergrad, my school had something called a matriculation convocation where all of the faculty members processed in wearing their regalia. And I had never seen that before. And I thought it was so incredibly beautiful. And I just was like kind of awed by it. And then I was so supported by my faculty members in undergrad that it just felt like teaching made sense. Plus I would get regalia at some point. And honestly, it's like the perfect fit for me. Teaching is like the best profession.
Yeah, and I mean, cold drip is definitely a plus. Have you seen those PhD gowns?
Right. They're really hot though. So like outside during commencement, hot.
And what is your favorite class to teach?
I can't answer this question. I love every single one of my classes for totally different reasons. So I will just say my favorite classes are Intro to Psych, Social Psych, Psychology of Prejudice, Human-Animal Interactions, Psychology of Women and Human Sexuality. Oh, and Senior Research. I love research.
Nice. And are there research opportunities available for students through the psych department?
Yeah, a ton. Our major is actually really focused on research, and so students do a lot of research as part of the major. But in addition to that, my colleagues, always one, have active research labs during the semester. I'm working on getting mine back up and going, actually. And then we almost always, one of us is supervising summer research, and then like the Epic Advantage programs, the one that I led, and then a colleague led another one. So there's a ton of research opportunities in psych, yeah.
That's pretty cool. And when are your office hours?
This semester, because they change every semester, they're Wednesday afternoons from 2:30 to 4, but I also have an open door policy, and so students just like show up and they're like, Maggie, I have a question, and I'm like, cool, let's talk about it.
What is the most random question you've had that somebody just came to your office and asked out of the blue?
I think some of the most random questions are things like, if I could read one book about psychology, what would you have me read? And I don't know how to answer that because it would as a person who knows that field so well, I would want to say, well, what area of psychology? And so I think that one is really hard.
And what's one thing you love about Earlham students?
I love so many things about Earlham students. I think if I had to pick one thing that I love about Earlham students, I think I really love Earlham students' passion to change the world. And sometimes that means like their literal, like there in front of them. Sometimes that means their town or their state, but sometimes like it literally means the world. And I love that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite spot to grab a bite in Richmond?
Honestly, it's not in Richmond. My very favorite spot around here is a restaurant called Five Arch, which is in Centerville. It's like 2 minutes down the road.
Oh, so pretty close to Richmond.
Yeah, basically Richmond.
What's the hardest thing about being a professor?
The hardest thing for me about being a professor is that I always am thinking up new classes I want to teach, which is awesome, except I love all my current classes, and so I don't want to give any of them up. And it's a lot of work to create a new class. And so doing that is really fun because it allows me to learn new things with my students, but also it's just a lot of work, and so I can't do it all the time.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So what's the newest class you've thought about recently?
The newest class that I've thought about recently that I have not created yet, but I really want to teach at some point is a psychology of gender class, which is different from like psychology of women.
Nice. And what's the most interesting thing you've learned recently?
I was just reading, so this semester I'm teaching human-animal interactions, and NPR just did this really cool story, and I learned that polar bear fur doesn't freeze. And that's just cool. I can't explain like the chemical or physical properties of why that happens, but I was like, this is pretty awesome.
What is a book that everybody should read?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to recommend a single book. I think I'm going to recommend that you pick a book that a person you love really loves. My partner did that when we started dating, and it really helped them kind of learn more about me and why I like the books that I like.
That's so sweet. And if you could take someone else's class at Earlham, what would you take?
Like all of them. When I do advising with my students and we're looking at classes for them to take next semester, I'm like, I want to take that one and that one and that one. So like looking around campus, so like visual and performing arts is that way. I take ceramics with Judy. I'd take Damn the Gods with Max. I'd take Subjects of Desire with Ryan. I'd take Encounters with Cosmos with Seth. I'd take Cults with Liz. I should probably stop, but like honestly, taking any class that my colleagues are passionate about would be amazing.
Yeah, I think you mentioned most of the departments.
Yeah, probably.
What's one thing you'd like to see change in higher ed?
I'd really love for there to be a better understanding of what a liberal arts education is, because I think the greatest problems of our time aren't going to be solved from a single perspective or a single discipline, and they're going to need people who have learned to think across disciplines and synthesize information across disciplines, and that's literally what a liberal arts education is designed to do, and people just don't seem to know that.
That makes sense. Yeah. And what's the best compliment you've ever received?
So at the end of every semester for our classes, students have to give us course evaluations. And years ago, I'm not kidding, like probably 12 years ago, but it was here on campus, a student wrote the following sentence in one of my course evals. And the sentence was, "It was like Maggie sprinkled fairy dust knowledge into my brain." And I still think about that and smile.
That is so sweet. And what's one thing you hope students take away from your class?
Oh, that's a great question. So as a social psychologist, we think a lot about context. And so I think if I were to pick one thing that my students would take away from really any of my classes, it's that the context we are in really impacts who we are and our behaviors, and that we can't really ever know the full context for somebody else. And so it's important to kind of meet people with openness and grant grace.
Yeah, that's really true.
Yeah.
And what's the most rewarding part of your job?
I think for me, the most rewarding part of my job is the light bulb moments for students. That kind of moment of aha, when something clicks. And sometimes that's like a class thing that they're like, oh my gosh, this explains why, I do the thing that I do. But sometimes it's figuring out a study strategy that works really well for them. That actually just happened to me this past semester. A student was like, Maggie, I took the things that we were learning about. This was intro to psych and we were studying memory. And she's like, and I applied them, and she like knocked it out of the park on that exam, and it was super awesome. And she's been using it ever since. And sometimes it's like what the path will be for them. Like, so those light bulb moments I think are my favorite and the best part of teaching. It's really an honor to be a part of somebody else's growth.
I think that makes really sense to what you said about the psychology's research is me search.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think Earlham is a diverse campus?
I really do think Earlham is a diverse campus, and I think that's true kind of regardless of how you think about diversity. We have about 20% of our students from countries literally all over the world, and like sometimes it's like 1 or 2 students from their country. We have about 20% of our students are domestic students of color. We have a large proportion of students part of the queer community. We were just profiled like a year ago in the New York Times in terms of economic diversity. And so like we really are a diverse place, which is really awesome at a school of this size. It really impacts, I think, the classroom experience and the college experience, because we get to learn so much from people whose lives and lived experiences can just be so different from our own. And I love that personally, so yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
This sounds really simple, but honestly, I think the best piece of advice I have ever received is do the next best thing. Because sometimes like when I get overwhelmed or I'm feeling really anxious about like all of the things, and sometimes that's work related and sometimes that's life related, sometimes it's a combination, it can be really hard not to let those kind of feelings of overwhelmingness and anxiety take over. And so reminding myself that all I have to do is the next best thing kind of helps ground me and anchor me in a really important way.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give a student coming to Earlham?
Get involved. Like try new things, join new clubs, take classes that like push your boundaries just a little bit. College is a great time for you to help kind of elaborate on and figure out who you want to be and where you want to go in life. And you can't do that unless you are trying new things and meeting new people and expanding your worldview. So it would definitely be to get involved.
That's really true. And
Yeah.
what's your favorite spot on campus?
Inside, I really like a place that we call the psych loft. It's like right outside the psych faculty members' offices because there's not a lot of natural light, and my colleagues are often there working or students are there working. And if I sit out there, like, it's just a natural place to run into people. And then outside, I actually like the Heart for the same reason, which is behind me right now, because it's the exact same thing. It's just a great place to see people.
And to just hang out.
Yeah, yeah.
And what do you think is special about Earlham?
I think the people are special. This is a community like no other. I mean, Earlham people really care about the other people here, and I just love that, and I feel really special to be a part of a community like that.
That's really awesome. And why should everyone watching this video apply to Earlham?
I think everyone who's watching this video should apply to Earlham because this is a place where you will get to experience so many amazing things with so many amazing people. Earlham is like home to some of literally the best teachers in the nation. And so taking classes with people who care about their subject but care about you as a human, I think is really important. And then it's just a really awesome place. So that's why.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie.
For sure. Bye, Tsitsi.
Bye.